Think about who you were 7 years ago, the things you wanted, the people you loved, the beliefs you held without question. Now ask yourself honestly, how many of those are still true? Most people assume the answer is some, but science has a stranger answer, a more unsettling one that changes what it means to be you at all. What if the person you were 7 years ago is not just different from you? What if that person is, in a very real biological and psychological sense, gone? Your body is not the object you think it is. It is not a container that carries you through time, unchanged, like a bottle holding water. It is closer to a river. The shape stays. The water is always moving. Every cell in your body is being replaced. Skin cells shed and regenerate every 2 to 4 weeks. Red blood cells complete their cycle in roughly 4 months. The lining of your stomach rebuilds itself every 5 days. Your liver, which filters everything you consume, replaces the majority of its cells every 300 to 500 days. Even your bones, which feel like the most permanent parts of you, are in constant remodeling. Osteoblasts build. Osteoclasts break down. The entire skeleton refreshes itself over roughly 10 years. There are exceptions. Neurons in the cerebral cortex, the cells responsible for your memories, your personality, your deepest sense of self, most of those you are born with. But the connections between them, the synapses that wire your thoughts together, those are rewritten constantly. Every experience you have is physically reshaping your brain. So the question becomes more complicated. If almost nothing material is the same, what exactly is continuous? What is the you that persists? This is not a new question. The ancient Greeks had a version of it. They called it the ship of Theseus. A famous ship is preserved in a harbor as a monument. Over time, its wooden planks rot and are replaced, one by one. Eventually, every single plank has been swapped out. Is it still the same ship? And then someone collects all the original planks and builds a ship from them. Which one is the real ship of Theseus? Your body has been asking this question about itself your entire life. But here is where it gets stranger. The biological story is just the surface. The deeper replacement is psychological, and it has been documented in ways that are quietly extraordinary. In the 1980s, psychologist Dan McAdams began studying something he called the narrative identity. His research proposed that your sense of self is not a fixed thing stored somewhere in your mind. It is a story you are constantly telling and retelling. A story about who you are, where you came from, and where you are going. And like all stories, it gets edited. Chapters get reframed. Villains become teachers. Failures become turning points. The plot changes to fit who you need to be right now. This is not weakness. It is not dishonesty. It is how human identity actually functions. Think about a painful memory from 7 years ago. Not just what happened, but how you feel about it now. The raw edge is probably duller. The meaning you attach to it has probably shifted. The story you tell about that event, if you tell it at all, has been rewritten by everything that happened after. That is not your imagination. That is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. Psychologist Becca Levy at Yale found that even your beliefs about aging rewrite your physical experience of it. People who held more positive views of growing older lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative views. The story you tell about yourself does not just live in your head. It lives in your body. But here is the twist that most people miss. Not everything changes, and the things that stay are the most revealing parts of you. Researchers studying personality across decades. Work done extensively by psychologist Brent Roberts at the University of Illinois found that certain core traits are remarkably stable. Curiosity, conscientiousness, the tendency to feel emotions deeply. These do not dissolve and reform with your cells. They persist across decades, threading through every version of you like a spine through water. So what you are left with is this. You are not the same person you were 7 years ago, but you are also not a different person. You are something stranger than either of those options. You are a continuous pattern, a set of tendencies and memories and stories that ride through time inside a body that is always being rebuilt. Some philosophers call this the bundle theory of self. Developed most famously by David Hume in the 18th century, it proposes that the self is not a single unified thing at all. It is a bundle of perceptions, habits, and stories that travel together and create the illusion of one stable identity. There is no captain, just a crew that has worked together so long they move as one. That idea is uncomfortable. It is supposed to be. Because if the self is a bundle, then who decides what goes in the bundle? Who decides what gets kept and what gets discarded? You do. That is the part no one tells you. Every time you retell a story about your past, you are making an editorial choice. Every time you repeat a behavior, you are reinforcing a thread in the pattern. Every time you walk away from something that used to define you, you are quietly replacing a plank in the ship. And the person standing on the other side of that replacement is still you. Just a you that chose what stayed. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett, in her research on how emotions are constructed, found that your brain is not passively receiving the world. It is constantly predicting it. It takes what it already knows about you and uses that to build your experience of every moment. Which means who you believe yourself to be is not just a reflection of your past. It is actively shaping what you experience right now. The version of you from 7 years ago was building the world through a different lens. Different predictions, different filters, a different story. Here is the question no one wants to sit with. If you could go back and meet that version of yourself, not as a memory, but as a real person standing in front of you, would you recognize them as you? Would they recognize you? In some studies of autobiographical memory, people consistently underestimate how much they have changed. Psychologist Daniel Gilbert at Harvard called this the end of history illusion. When surveyed, people of every age acknowledged that they had changed significantly over the past decade. But almost universally, they believed they would change very little in the next 10 years. Every version of you has believed it was the final version. Every version has been wrong. And that might be the most human thing about you. Not your cells, not your memories, not your name, but this, the fact that you keep arriving at the present moment believing you are finally finished, while quietly, constantly, you are still becoming. 7 years from now, someone will sit where you are sitting. They will have your name and your memories and your face mostly, but they will see the world through a lens that does not quite exist yet. They will love things you haven't discovered. They will have let go of things you are still holding. They will look back at who you are right now, today, this moment, the version of you reading this, and they will feel what you feel when you think about who you were 7 years ago. A strange tenderness, a slight distance, a recognition that is not quite certainty. So no, you are not the same person you were 7 years ago, but here is the part that matters. That is not a loss. That is the whole point. You were never meant to stay still. You are a river that keeps the shape of the river, and the water, always quietly, is moving.